Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I want to welcome you this afternoon for our announcement. And also, I would like to introduce Honorable Minister Nsengimana, the Minister of Youth and ICT of Rwanda. And also, I would like to introduce the President and the CEO of Sub-Saharan Africa, Ericsson. My name is Chiletsi Makofani. I'm responsible for government and industry relations. Today we've gathered here to witness this important milestone between Ericsson and the government of Rwanda in terms of collaborations around ICT. And I think those of you that attended our Africa Night yesterday, I think we have seen really very key messages around how ICT is important, and even for Africa on how it is important. And it is today that the two partners have gathered here to be able to shape a way forward of collaboration, with Ericsson being a leader in ICT globally, and then also with the government of Rwanda playing a very key role in terms of driving their economy towards a knowledge-based economy, and also the role they play in the region. So without a waste of time, I would like to hand over to our regional head, our President and CEO, Mr. Frederick Bielmi.
Okay, thank you, Chiletsi, and a warm welcome to everyone. How many of you were at the event last night?
Oh, it's fantastic.
Good.
The boy from
No, so maybe just a bit of recap, and for those of you who were there and for those of you who are not there. I think we talked a lot about, as Chiletsi is mentioning here now, how mobile broadband will enable the society in Africa, and I think there are a couple of levels to that. First of all, of course, we can talk about big numbers, and we tend to do that because that could indicate big business for us, but we talk about 650 million customers of people yet to be connected in Africa on mobile broadband. We have 80% of adults that are unbanked, and we have a penetration of TV media that is rather low due to both the affordability and availability of TVs and devices to view infotainment, etc. So in that space, our technology then, mobile broadband combined with cloud offerings can then basically facilitate a lot of inclusion and empowerment across the African continent, and that's what we in essence spoke about yesterday during the African Night. And we also saw that it will not happen probably automatically, but we looked at it from a perspective of what it takes to make it work. And I think there are three parties that need to sort of come to the table when it comes to this. And there is of course the sort of the operators and those players that work in the markets. There are the governments and the regulators, and there is ultimately for technology providers and service providers ourselves to be more relevant maybe in the African context. So these three entities need to work together to sort of facilitate an environment that is conducive to growth. I think that was some of the key messages from yesterday. And of course, it's a teamwork at the end of the day between these three parties, and we would love to be part of that team from an Ericsson perspective. We're going to do a couple of things there. We did we released this mobility report on a regular basis, we use a lot of internal and external sources to forecast what is likely to happen in the market in terms of statistics and subscriptions and things like that over the next period of time. We did release one global one a couple of days back, and it confirms what we're saying before from a global perspective, but we think that 90% of all subscriptions in the world by the end of 2020 will be mobile broadband. So that means that the business is really transforming into mobile data business, and video we believe is big from a global perspective, and if we look at the last 6 years of video consumption, we think that it's going to increase by about 17 times when we look ahead at the next 6 years. So it's a huge growth that we're looking at. And one thing that we also see when we look at consumer behavior is that consumer preferences are changing and app usage is going up quite significantly. Before it was web browsing, now it's more app usage. And if you had the opportunity to visit the Ericsson stand, and we'd love to have you there if you haven't yet been there, we actually did launch a service now that last year we introduced a concept called application coverage, in the sense that an operator or someone wanted to build a mobile network could say, I want to have a good streaming service across Lagos, for example, or whatever it might be. And that might indicate 1 megabit per second as download speed. If we look at now what we're doing is we're actually optimizing also the application as such. So that if you're a keen Facebook user, for example, we will then have the opportunity to make sure that you get the absolute best Facebook experience. So one way of looking at this is to look at with the players to see what are the 5 most popular apps. It could be banking, it could be Facebook, it could be YouTube. Those we give a really great consumer experience on. So those are something linked to that fact that the usage shifted from web-based into app-based kind of usage. We will also within short release 2 reports. One on South Africa looking at internet goes mobile and the consumer behavior in South Africa and Nigeria. And those also indicate the emergence to what we call network society in Africa. So that was some of what we've done here. We also have, and if you've been in the hall, we have had some quite interesting launches from our perspective in the last few days. We launched a completely new radio portfolio, which we call it, which is basically the base station and everything that goes back into the aggregation routers. And that's a completely new system which has a lot of benefits for Africa, I would say, because the size of it is reduced in half. Power consumption and running costs are reduced by 25–30%. So it's really a portfolio. If I would have had the opportunity to design an African solution, it probably look quite close to the global solution that actually came out now. So there's a lot of benefits for Africa and good news in that sense. Before I move on, any questions from turn it around and do a reverse press conference then? Any questions from your side, any comments or anything? Because you were at the African night yesterday and you've been in the hall. Any questions about what we've been doing here in Ericsson over the past few days? I'm happy to answer that.
For me right now.
Okay.
Maybe they're waiting for you from me then.
Absolutely. Very good. So, with that, thank you for the cue. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome Honorable John Philbert Nsinyama to share some exciting news about Smart Rwanda.
Thank you so much, Frederick. It's a great pleasure to be here, and as we put some ink to paper on an agreement that actually reflects our shared belief in what lies ahead of us in terms of the potential that Africa holds, and especially Rwanda. Rwanda has, over the last couple of years, probably 15 years, been investing a lot in these new technologies because our president and now the Rwandan people believe in the power, the transformative power of technology for development. So over that period of time, we've done a lot in terms of putting in place an environment, policies and institutions that are going to drive that transformation. We've been putting a lot of efforts in building the infrastructure and skills. And we've come to a point, as the presentation that Mr. Hans did yesterday, you know, the 5th technology revolution, we are transiting from installation to deployment, really embracing broadband and the cloud. And what this brings to us is really a possibility of transforming some of the key sectors of our economy. So we're talking about government transformation, we're talking about delivering healthcare at a quality and access that is unprecedented. We're talking about education. The financial sector is completely changed, and everyone today has the possibility of being financially included something that seemed a remote dream for most of our people just a few years ago. We're looking at the new budding SMEs and the amount of innovation that are coming from the young people who are able now to be active players in our economies. We're looking at possibilities of building completely new smart cities. Africa is yet to urbanize. Less than 50% of African people live in urban areas. And as we build the cities of the future, one is to build like it's been done over the last few centuries, or building completely on a new paradigm of smart cities. But also we are looking at technology cities, where we create an environment for technology to thrive, but just not as a place where you have people to work, but also to live. So that is what is in the Smart Rwanda master plan. We've committed to transform our economy from an agriculture-based economy to a knowledge-based economy, and that actually also applies to a number of African countries. And we are in the last 5 years of that transformation. And for some of you who speak in Latin, you know that there is a saying in Latin that in cauda venenum. So in the last 5 years, that's where you put your last energy to make sure that you reach your target. So we are really very happy to be with you as we drive through that last 5 years stretch of our 2020 vision. But at the same time, this Smart Africa vision that is getting the whole continent excited. We really want to expand our collaboration to go beyond Rwanda and see what is it that we can do to shape the future of ICT for development on our continent. Maybe to close, the boy from Umtata yesterday asked us a question: what is your Jupiter? What is your dream? And I haven't been thinking about my dreams because I spend most of my time awake and working. But I looked at the way Africa was represented in the slide there with 54 small bubbles. And I thought that there was an opportunity to actually burst all those bubbles and combine them in one big bubble, which means that unlocking the potential of a big, unique market, 1 billion market in Africa. And we've started in our own small way in doing that in our East Africa region. So we are looking at things like removing these roaming charges. We are integrating our networks. We are making money and data flow at a very low cost for the people. And we are actually supporting one of the highest political agenda of our continent, which is to make a regional integration. Whereas it has taken years, and it will probably take many more years to build railways and roads, and there are at least 3 areas where I see Africa can move very fast. One is interconnecting the continent with technology. Wireless, broadband, and waves don't know where the border is. So that's one thing, and we can build on that. Second, letting people move freely in the continent. One thing that Rwanda did is to remove visa for Africans to come to the country. I would just imagine if every country would emulate that example, letting people roam free across the continent, both physically and using technology. So the third is converging all our minds in terms of where our priorities lie, and improving our doing business environment, so that people like Ericsson can come and make an investment that addresses the needs of a bigger, much bigger market. So those are the thoughts that I come here at the signing of this ceremony in our minds, and those are the things that we are committed to take the next few months to really define a very clear scope of collaborative activities, and set a standard, a very high standard of what a private-public partnership could do in taking Africa forward. So thank you so much, Frederick, for this opportunity, and Shiletsi, you've been a great collaborator. We've spent a great number of months talking about this. Finally, it's a dream come true for both of us.